Meeting to order. We are now going to call the meeting. I always do that, Sarah. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and Sarah or Ian, you do the roll call, please.
Billy Beal.
Here.
Rob Cortell.
Here.
Morton Quick. Here. Lisa Hull.
Here.
Kim McClellan.
Here.
All right, I'm supposed to read the members participating remotely. 500 word piece here. Can I get a motion that I can waive that? But will and thank you. Is there a second? All right. We do have one member participating remotely, which is Kim McClellan, as she's meeting because it's 60 miles from her principal, more than 60 miles from her principal residence. And so we need a motion to approve her.
So moved.
Our motion, second. All those in favor, please say aye. There was nobody who gave us notice of public involvement. We have the consent agenda of the September 12th minutes. There's no changes or corrections. The motion would be appreciated.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
New business. First up, Mr. Minor.
Good morning, Mr. Bill, and good morning to the council this morning. I think the first thing I want to do is just thank the staff, Ian and Sarah, for their help, as well. I know Chip's not here, but Chip as well, because he's been a pretty good cheerleader of my department in the county, King George County. So we're here today to present to you guys a young entrepreneurship program that we'd like to pilot here in King George County, as well as Gloucester County at Gloucester High School. What we intend to do with this program is to really start trying to grow our own as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Every locality, well, I shouldn't say every locality, but localities in the Northern Neck, Middle Penn, we all suffer from, brain drain. Basically, just having folks move out of our regions into other regions and start businesses. So we don't intend to, or we don't expect to have, the next Apple, the next big tech company spur up from these localities or spur up from out of these regions. But what we're looking to do is to inspire the students within our region to start businesses and to also look at the opportunities that exist in our region to where when they do go off to school or when they do start businesses, that they consider us as either the first option or to come back and do that as well. So, and that's what we intend to do with this program. So King George County, as well as Gloucester County, both have existing programs. King George County has a club. Gloucester County has actually a class that they stand up. And what we're trying to do is just put both of those programs on steroids, essentially, is what we're trying to do. We want to bring in Phoenix Advantage to help coach them, mentor them, bring in their existing network that they have, and to teach these kids what it takes. Also, I will be participating, showing them the importance and the role that economic development plays in economic development and entrepreneurship, and what resources that my locality offers. And what I'm hoping to do as well is have Gloucester County's economic development department come in as well to support. Again, this program to me is very important because of all the initiatives that we have going on in the region for entrepreneurship. To me, this is a bridge from high school into that just starting to formulate those ideas and keep these kids motivated from high school all the way into college, and hopefully, or maybe not even college, maybe they want to start something straight out of high school. And this is just to help put that on steroids and push it through. So that's my pitch. I'll turn it over to Miles if he wants to add anything to that, anything that I missed that he thinks is important for the council to hear this morning.
Thanks, Nick. And Nick, you seldom miss anything, so I'll add on. But
Thanks.
The background here, a couple of things. That one, obviously, this is a high priority for Go Virginia. Entrepreneurship is one of their key focal points, and I think it should be. Two, we've done this before. We did a program. I was the director of economic development in Fauquier County for 8 years, and we did a Go Virginia funded project where we worked with 3 high schools on entrepreneurship because, one, we think throughout my career in economic development, which is a long one, entrepreneurship has always been an underutilized, underappreciated element. And study after study and hands-on experience after hands-on experience tells us that local economies that don't spin off and create new businesses are going to stagnate. And so, the concern has always been, do economic developers and do people in government fully appreciate what's happening? And what's happening nationally is entrepreneurship is slowing down, hard as that may be to believe, and especially amongst younger people. So, there's a negative that we're trying to counteract, but there's also a positive, which is that entrepreneurship can do so many things for these young people. It offers them an alternative career path. It may help keep them home when they finish high school. So many of us are experiencing brain drain. The kids go off to go to college, they never come back. And they're capable of starting businesses as young people, and if they do, it's going to anchor them even more so to their home community. It also has a lot to do with supporting the attraction of new businesses, because more and more people who control business locations want to be in places that feature innovation and entrepreneurship and new growth. And so having an entrepreneurship program not only helps your existing entrepreneurs, it also can help the encouragement of attracting new business, which is what economic developers largely do and have traditionally done. Now there are ways of strengthening that by adding a strong entrepreneurship program. Some of you know me and know that I've had a lot to do with starting business incubators in Northern Virginia particularly, which is great for existing entrepreneurs. But one of the things that one of my mentors challenged me to do is he said, what are you doing to fill the pipeline? You've got some entrepreneurs, that's great, encourage them, nurture them. But when is the next round going to come through? When are kids going to start taking an interest in entrepreneurship? And so that prompted the program we did 3 years ago in Region 9. And it's something that we think can and should be replicated in more and more places. Here, we talked at that conference about the future of rural entrepreneurship. I think that's one of the things we find in more rural communities that really can make a difference. So we think it can work. We did 3 high schools, pilots in 3 high schools in our other program, all 3 of which had tangible results to show, one of which actually started a business. And the irony is, we got this program off the ground, we were getting great reviews, the kids were enjoying it, and COVID hit. And all 3 schools closed down. And we had to find ways to virtually continue the program. And so again, one of the schools started a business. Another school started to develop, they had a level 1 entrepreneurship class. They started working on building a level 2 class. The third school was in a community that felt that they had a great program. They had a class, they had some marketing classes that supported it. They had events they were doing. They said, but we've become so insular. The entrepreneurs we bring in to work with the kids are all local. So they're in great businesses for this region, but our kids are going to be off into the world. They need to know something about starting other kinds of businesses. So what we did there was broaden their horizons and bring businesses from outside. So what we hope to do here, working with Nick, who has incredible vision about something like this. I also have had conversations with the folks from Colonial Beach and also from Gloucester County. And in the case of Gloucester County, Nick planted the seeds and then pointed me at the assistant principal at the high school and the person who teaches their entrepreneurship class. He had formerly been a custodial engineer and wound up graduating to teach the entrepreneurship class. And he's bringing some other entrepreneurs in, but they were so enthusiastic about the idea of, we're both entrepreneurs, we're both serial entrepreneurs, in fact. We work with other entrepreneurs. We will have under contract a third person who actually was one of my partners in doing the previous program. Michelle works with entrepreneurs. I'm going to ask her to just say a little bit about her work, and has also created classes for entrepreneurs before. So, we're ready to do this, working with the local economic developers and the local schools who have been just tremendously enthusiastic about what we hope to do. And just to give you 25 words or less on how this will work, if you approve, and if DHCD signs up and makes the money available, we will immediately be down here to meet with all 3 counties and the school systems. And the objective there right away is going to be say, okay, we have these resources, you're aware of them, you're on the proposal. What exactly do you need here? What are your goals as a county and as a school system? And what are your resources and what are your needs? So each of the 3, we will tailor something specifically to their needs and resources. We're not gonna come in with a pre-printed model and say, here, it just won't work. So just as we did in our previous program, each school will have something that is tailored to what they need to help you accomplish. And, you know, this, by the way, we talked a little bit this morning about the schedule in our proposal. The schedule is an ideal 12-month scenario. Once we get on the ground and we see where we are in terms of, you know, do we get on the ground just before the holidays, perhaps, if things move quickly? That'd be great. We can start with the new semester.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
We allocated 15 minutes for this. You're a little over 9 into it.
I'm almost done.
And by allocating 15 minutes, management is telling me that they don't think this is gonna take a big sales pitch. So I know Rob's got a question and I've got a couple,
Sure.
so maybe we should dedicate some time to that. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, please, thank you. Couple questions.
Sure.
One, if Matthews County could come up with some matching money, and we could come up with some, could it be extended to another county?
Yes.
Second, okay, I'm on it. Second, when you say entrepreneurship, I assume this is not technology entrepreneurship, this is the act of thinking like an entrepreneur. So in like 25 seconds, what are the key things you would teach?
Well, one is, how do you create a business? What's your value add? What's your value proposition? Because that's something that we see missing sometimes.
So you would do like the business model map. You know, it's the one out of Stanford, some simplified version. Well, you don't have to simplify it for high school students.
Right.
Okay. And
So that, first thing is, what's your value proposition? What is it you want to do as an entrepreneur? And then how do you become an entrepreneur? You need capital, you need ability to do financial analysis, you need, you know, all the different key needs. How do you go about doing those things?
okay, so the business model canvas, which you're familiar with, I'm sure also, teaches you to go out and ask questions of the potential customers and figure out to whom you actually sell. So, so I think it's a great idea.
How do you teach, you know, you can teach the book, and I'm actually going through my MBA right now. So, I mean, all this type of stuff is, how do you teach these young people to take the risk? You know, because I mean, becoming an entrepreneur, it's so much risk involved. So you can come up with your value, you can come up with all sorts of great things on paper, but the mentality of taking that risk, how do you teach that?
I'll speak to that. It's you're not able to teach to all kids. So we'll get that right out of the way, but it's really about figuring out your why. And that's adults or kids. When kids have a clear focus of what they want and their why they want this thing, that's the motivation for them to become the entrepreneurs and to go through the hard things, right? We can teach them the nuts and bolts of how to read a balance sheet and legal setup, you know, how to form your company and all of that. But the very first thing is, okay, you have this value proposition, you have this business you think you want to go do. Why do you want to go do that thing?
Well, I would argue it's also about de-risking. So, you know, it's
Right, so it's about-
you have an idea, you go through a set of steps to see if there are people who really want this and if it makes sense. And then, okay, how do I set about de-risking that? And I mean, my experience, and I'm part of a group of 1,300 tech entrepreneurs, all startup, you know, in Northern Virginia. Most of them felt they weren't at high risk, you know, when they started their businesses, because they went through these steps to de-risk getting into it.
Can I speak to that real quick? And I think that's also where my department comes in, because I feel like that's my job from a county level to de-risk projects the best that I possibly can, whether it's regulatory, whether it's, you know, on the tax side or whether it's on the political side. It's my job to sort of help them de-risk. So that's the value that I intend to add to the project as well. Who to talk to, where to go, where the resources exist. Because almost every community is similar if they have an economic development department. You know, whether they have a regional group that can help them or a chamber or something that can help them, you know, that may be spotty, but the resources are out there for a lot of people to start businesses. It's just sort of help pointing them in the right directions. I'm not a subject matter expert on starting businesses, but I know where somebody should go when they walk into my office, and if they tell me what their issue is, I know exactly who they need to talk to, so.
You know,
And
the
that's
bottom-
really one of the biggest barriers is people don't know what they don't know when they're starting out a business. So you're not aware of all these resources that are available, which in turn reduces your risk because you can gather people around you who do know what you don't know and can help guide you down it.
The other thing most successful entrepreneurs will tell you is, don't be afraid to fail.
Mhm.
And be prepared for that, you know, have money you can fall back on, have people you can fall back on, because some of them don't make it on the first try.
Fail fast.
Yeah.
Really.
Starting high school.
Two questions. Nick,
Yes, sir.
King George High School used to have a pretty dynamic junior achievement
I
program.
was, oh, yeah.
Does that still exist?
So what they do now, well, they have DECA. And this is,
Maybe it was DECA.
yes, and DECA is gonna be a part of that. Instructor is highly motivated to do something like this. And she teaches marketing, and she teaches, it's like small business
Is it
startup.
still the same teacher that?
Dee Strauss.
Good for her.
Dee Strauss is killing it. But they want her to be able to, so, and I mean, this is later, but you know, in the implementation side of it, they'd like for Dee to head up that program, but we're gonna start with the club side of it. We're gonna
Okay.
pass it off to a different instructor, let her take it over, and then if we can get to the implementation side, hopefully create a curriculum that'll stay within the high school.
Right. How does this initiative interact, if it interacts at all, with the entrepreneurial ecosystem project that we're trying to stand up?
Yeah, so we had that in mind when we started. That's one of the reasons why we spoke to the FRA, because I know they're working on the Rivers Region Economic Entrepreneurship Council,
Yeah.
I believe is what they have. So I don't know if there's a pathway that goes from high school to commercializing patents, but I think that it's good to start talking to them about talking about the opportunities that exist in the community. Exactly. So if you are someone that's looking to start a business, commercializing or licensing technology is one way. And I'm gonna encourage, I'm not gonna tell the high school how to run their program, but I'm gonna encourage them, hey, here's the opportunities that exist in King George. Here are the opportunities that exist in the Northern Neck.
So where
You
is
should
King
consider.
George exactly? The biggest city?
So
Dahlgren.
if you wanna call a city,
That's what I
Dahlgren's a city,
Yeah,
right?
okay. that's
But
what I- that's
we're
what I thought.
stuck, we're the bridge
Right,
between
right.
the Fredericksburg region and the Northern Neck region.
Right.
So we're kind of positioned in an awkward place, but there's a lot of opportunity being in between those two.
Well, there are also a
regions.
lot of high-tech companies up there. And
Exactly,
major companies that have regional offices,
Right.
like, you know, all these, they're associated with Darwin, so.
exactly. That's sort of what we wanna try to tap into, so.
Okay, Kim or Lisa, any questions?
Oh, I was just gonna say the same thing. Just that seems that there's so many of these programs coming up now, which is great. And at some point, it'd be nice to see some interconnectivity, just because there are so many of the same kinds of things. But Nick, I know that you've got that locked down and are working with folks, and it's good to see that we're making this focus, because we haven't had that until it seems like quite recently.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Is it a motion?
It is.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Well done.
Yes.
The next one we have up is, and I'll let Ian explain this, but we've already approved this project at the last council meeting. But DHCD has asked us to restructure it so that a nonprofit, Jason Learning, is not the applicant, but rather Stafford County Public Schools. Does that, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that's it. So basically what we'd be voting on today is restructuring it so that Stafford County Public Schools is the lead applicant. Doesn't change anything in the application at all. They're just the lead applicant. We could have a whole day-long conversation about how inefficient that is, but it kind of is what it is. And according to DHCD, if we do this, this project will be approved. So.
All right, any objections, any comments, questions? It's a lot of form over substance, so may
Make
we
a
have a,
motion to amend as
Thank you.
represented. Yeah, I'll make that.
thank you. Second,
Second,
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Any opposed? All right, I do have one question as part of that. Have we gotten anything back on the G3 application that indicates they're gonna try to pull that same maneuver?
So we got in the feedback questions for the G3 application and for all the implementation applications that were reviewed last week.
Yeah,
They didn't mention anything specifically in the questions about GQ being an applicant as a nonprofit. They did delve into, right, yeah. So it, you know,
Part of their consistency effort.
their best practices around consistency should for sure be adopted, but they did try to delve into what is the official relationship between G3 Community Services and Germana. Which we talked about on the call and was in the application as well. So that's how I think they're getting at that question of a nonprofit leading it.
so,
Trying to suss out that relationship.
you know, Virgil may not be giving the right answers there then, but,
Vernon.
Vernon, I'm sorry, yeah, Vernon.
Well, it'd be a little baffled if they approved that and then didn't approve this. So,
Well, I think they'll approve this,
well, I'm saying initially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, the thing with that project, though, I think that we can easily bring in like a Stafford EDA or even GWRC as a potential lead applicant for that. It would be the similar structure to this. Jason just bumps down to a contractor. So again, it's not necessarily the most efficient way to do it, but that's what they want.
Well, I suspect what's gonna happen is it's gonna function the way it was presented. Things will run through Stafford, but Stafford's not gonna try to control the implementation process and slow things down.
No, absolutely. Well, in fact, I spoke with Eleanor and I spoke with her a lot recently, but they're ready to go to build a curriculum. And this is really just kind of what's holding her up.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we'll look forward to see how they respond to the G3 application.
I will too, and not to open the can of worms, but some of the feedback questions that we've gotten for some of the other applications are quite frankly, things that were already in the application, particularly in the Chambers project. And there were questions that we answered on the call. So we'll see.
Yeah.
What we've asked if they could, and what we said, I don't know how much value it has, but we've asked if they could provide specific guidelines as to who can and cannot be applicants. Because right now, as it's written in the code, it doesn't say that a nonprofit can't be an applicant. It's really not that exclusive in terms of who can be applicants. So.
Well, and those two applications, it was the private sector, both nonprofits, putting up the money. And not, we're having to get in-kind contributions from this, and a little bit of cash from that, and those sort of things, and that's how we build the money. So it would seem they would appreciate that as a better example, but.
Right, yeah, if you wanna tout yourself as an industry-led program, then you have the industry wants to lead it, and then you reject that. It's obviously a lot of hypocrisy there, but yeah.
All right.
so not to belabor this, Billy and Ian, but are these the first applications we've had led by a really separate nonprofit, not at PDC or a community college or something? Is that why this is coming up now?
Well, it's the first ones we've had. I don't know whether it's
Right, not first in the state, but
in
first
other
we've had.
regions.
For sure not the first in the state at all. And in fact, to avoid this, and Sarah can attest to this, as we were going through the process, we shared with them the thought around the application, outside of sharing just the literal verbatim application. We kind of walk through these steps with them and make sure that everything is okay. Primarily, one of those being a nonprofit being the lead applicant. So, you know, we try to work off precedent, but when the precedent really isn't a precedent, because that's no meaning, it's kind of difficult.
Riot is the applicant for the pre-accelerator program.
That's right, they are the,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, Stafford is the
Nonprofit.
accelerator, but Riot
Yes.
is the pre-accelerator
Yes.
project. So,
Well, and it's not the first time they've seen Jason, because Jason is doing one with Portsmouth.
Correct.
As a joint applicant with NC State and a National Science Foundation. So it's,
right,
knows?
right, exactly, so
So DHCD muddies the waters again. Lovely. Thanks for making your job easier.
that's, yeah, well,
you know,
so I mean, from Sarah and I's perspective, what we're gonna have to do upfront, which is what I would prefer to not do, because it's just not very efficient, is basically just share applications with them and be like, is this okay? Before it even comes down to the regional council, because I don't want this stuff to keep happening where we have an application go in and.
all that does is just make the process an inefficient process more inefficient.
Well, then we're not gonna have applicants, and that's why people don't apply. Program, we're not gonna have public school systems be able to be applicants and manage a grant. You know, Stafford perhaps has the capacity, but you know, a lot of our other school districts do not, and Stafford really doesn't either. Because they're in the schools, so.
There we go. All right, your next item, sir.
Yeah, so this is just moving, and you guys can see in the next page, this is basically our rollover money for the capacity building budget. They allocate $250,000 every year, but we've had some rollover from year to year. This is reallocating 5,500 of that. It would be coming from budget line, the community futures staffing. It would come from that over to equipment and supplies. That would primarily be, we hadn't budgeted for a new laptop for Sarah before she came on. And then we hadn't budgeted for a software that we use called Good Grants, which kind of serves as a central location for all of our applications. So,
Are we doing anything with community futures?
no, that was just, and I mean,
I
you
don't
could,
think so. I heard about that for a while.
right, exactly. You can see, you know, it goes back.
Yeah.
Basically all the way to the beginning of
3
Go
years.
Virginia. Yeah, so,
So how far back? Or what prior years are we drawing from now?
so we're basically getting to the point where we are expending all of FY '22 and getting close to moving over to FY '23.
Okay,
It's just, in this case, we just didn't. If you look at it line item by line item, we just didn't have enough in this line item that had rolled over, and we always spend money here, don't budget much for it. But it's always a fixed cost for that equipment. And Jobs EQ makes up a huge portion of it too.
Okay.
Over 8,000, so.
all right, so we need a motion to make that move. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? All right. So be it. Meeting schedule.
Okay, so this is more so the all virtual participation, so I'm sure you all have seen the code, but I pulled out the main parts of the code that would allow us to have all virtual meetings. The policy statement below, if you all approve it, we would take it, we have a template for Region 6 that we plug it into. But basically, it'll allow us to have 2 regional council meetings per year, all virtual, 2 executive committee meetings per year, all virtual. And then if we develop any subcommittees, 2 of their meetings or 25% of their meetings can be all virtual, whichever one is greater.
Question. I don't think you're gonna have any trouble persuading the other 3 members of the executive committee that are here and the one who departed to do virtual. My question is whether we should say which meetings those are in advance so that we can have them scheduled. And as I was thinking about this, I'm thinking like the summer meeting and the one we just had.
That's why I included the schedule in there. So you
Yeah,
can go ahead.
because it would seem that, and I don't know that that's where we're having conflicts, but it would seem that those would be, you get into November and you get into all the things that happen in November and December, and then the I guess it's July or August. Where's the region?
July is the regional council.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, man, talking about prime vacation
Yeah.
time, that would be the one you
Right,
want
yeah.
to do personally. So I'm just wondering if we should set those in advance.
And July is actually the regional council meeting we didn't have an official quorum at,
Yeah,
so.
that would be a good reason.
Right, exactly. Well, and
So it'd be, well, I guess I'm suggesting July and October. We could do July and January. That would kind of give us a summer and a winter and separate them by 6 months.
would you want to include it in the policy?
I don't know that I don't know that I want to include it in a policy,
Yeah, no,
because then we'd have to change the policy every time. But I would think that the executive committee could so deem that that's when we want to do it and communicate to everybody. And then if for some reason we want to or need to change, we can.
yeah,
Get that.
for sure.
It should be in the executive committee, was meeting all those other times. Do we really meet the same month as the council meets? Or do we,
Well,
because I thought we
so
were skipping those.
we have it there, we haven't been. We have it there though, because that lines up with DHCD's submission deadline for
That we get
ECB
pressed.
applications.
Yeah.
But what we've been doing is just submitting them and they end up just coming in a few days late. And they don't review them by then anyway, and they say that it's okay. But we do just keep those there as a placeholder.
Was everybody in agreement of doing July and January virtually? Okay, I see nodding heads. Any thoughts on how to handle the executive committee meetings?
I say leave them on there, and I always like when a meeting gets canceled.
Yeah. Maybe look,
If needed,
yeah,
January.
maybe we ought
if
to
needed.
focus more on like that August. Well, what we can do is I think we can be flexible enough to say, "Hey, we haven't got a quorum, we can't get everybody to Warsaw one day." And then we can use that, just kind of hold that knowing we only get 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Rather than specifying which 2?
Yeah, I think, well, and
And that also, I guess, gives us the flexibility that, like the April meeting, if you actually need one, that could be one of our 2, I guess. So,
right. Well, and one of the primary functions of the executive committee is to approve the ECB applications when we have them in, when we have them come in. And we don't, because that process is much shorter, we don't always, we're not gonna know 5 months in advance, if we're gonna, so it is good to keep that flexibility there. So,
all right. So we need to vote on the policy. And then we should probably record the vote on our guidance, if we will. So all those in favor of the policy change, well, we need a motion. Need a motion and a second for the policy change.
I'll make that.
All right, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then we need a motion that we will, our guidance for the next calendar year, and maybe we can set this annually, and that'll make it easy, as the guidance for the next calendar year is that the January and July council meetings will be virtual. Does that make sense? Thank you. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Sarah, you will need to, you can send an email and amend everybody's calendars with those two, but I'd give them a heads up that
Yeah.
we're converting to virtual.
I'll do it today or tomorrow, yeah.
And I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot of applause coming from certain regions. Kim, are you still there? Because we've lost you visually.
Oh, our screens are off.
Oh, no, I'm here. I see you all.
Okay.
Oh, our screen's
All
turned
right.
Yeah, just the.
on.
I do have a quick question for the December executive committee meeting. So we get 2 a year, so that one can be virtual and then we can still get 2 for next year, correct?
Right, it's calendar year.
So do y'all want December's executive committee meeting to be virtual?
What's the date?
12th,
Yes.
maybe.
12th,
I'd say, yeah.
11th,
Definitely, yeah, I'd say.
Well, when is Sunday?
Be the 12th.
12th. I do. That's my birthday. I'd appreciate everybody, unless you're planning to make a cake or something, I'd appreciate it being virtual.
I don't know if you wanna eat a cake, I make.
Well, we're kind of gonna be in a little bit of a slow period anyway, unless we have to address anything with the applications that are there now, but I mean, that would mean the board would have kicked them back to us at that point.
This
Well,
board meeting's
and
the 13th.
Is the next.
Okay,
day, yeah.
So we're not even.
Well, we'll have, RCC has a project that they're trying to do. That we'll vote on then, and then, the SEDS. PD 16 is trying to do a SEDS. They're one of the few planning districts, that does not have a SEDS, so they're trying to do one. But we're just trying to make sure everything's in line, so that might be in December, but I think we'll definitely have that.
Okay. Well, that'll be fine. All right, financial report.
Yeah, I mean, I generally, I don't really have anything else, we just put we update the financial report every meeting we have, just so that you guys.
So if everything we've got funds, everything we've approved funds, how much money do we have left?
You see it that, under projects in pipeline, over pipeline approved, a little over $61,000.
Short.
Yes,
That looks
correct,
like-
correct.
So. But. Some of these are kind of out, and then also. Well, some of these have not been submitted, and then. I'm talking with FRA. About potentially. Moving that project to FY 24.
Okay.
Cause that's $300,000.
Yeah. we have that.
There's also. The potential. To take some money from our capacity building budget for the region. And use that towards the project, we have to have match, but. But yeah, I am talking with FRA too.
Does pushing that out cause us any problems elsewhere?
Pushing out FRA's project.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial ecosystem one.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I think it just gives them a little more time to figure out their strategic plan. You're gonna have to hire an executive director. Had submitted an application, an initial review in the summer. But a lot of their match they want most of their match to come from the private sector. So that's the thing that's holding it up now. So, I mean, we've had kind of communication back and forth. I don't necessarily think they're trying to rush it. So I don't think it hurts us at all though if we do end up pushing it out.
Well, I just remember there being a lot of pressure at one point about, geez, you guys are the only ones without one of these. And
It's true, we are the only
So-
Virginia region without one. That is very true.
do we know anything about the results of the other ones? I mean, have
In the other regions.
they achieved? And I would say some of the more rural ones, like us, what they have achieved with these.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I don't think that they've had a significant impact. The one so I guess if you're trying to compare region, I don't typically compare to Region 3 Southside just because they get all the tobacco money and it's just kind of a little different. And their localities the geography of the region is much different than ours. But deep Southwest, their entrepreneurial entity, I don't really think that they've done much to this point. Same when you look at the Shenandoah Valley. So, no.
You know, we may actually generate more industry cluster engagement through the grant to the workforce
To the
board
TPI.
than we will out of that entrepreneurial ecosystem. Some of that to me seems like it should be more spontaneous combustion of like-minded people talking to each other and inviting other people in and doing those things than,
Organic.
yeah, trying to get
Yeah, well,
forcing it, whereas I think hopefully what the workforce grant will do will help us with some of those industries and
I think it will.
I hope.
yeah, there is for sure some irony in the government getting really involved in entrepreneurial activity. So there's that, but yeah, I mean, I think that the workforce piece, like I think that what we'll see with that, with all the industries that they are encountering throughout that process is all the other issues that they're having as well. And I think that's really important because to a certain extent, workforce, I mean, it's a huge issue, but you know, there's some very simple things, not that it's gonna solve the overarching issue, but you know, there's some things that can be done, but supply chain and stuff like that. Again, I don't know how many solutions there are, but I think we'll be hearing a lot of that kind of stuff
We
also.
just need to grow people desperately.
Right.
We need 50 people right now. That's all I know.
Well, if we have a net outflow of workforce out of the state, they ought to spend more time trying to figure out what the root cause of that is than,
Affordable housing and things like that.
yeah, it probably runs the gamut and there's probably no one thing. You're probably right, probably affordable housing, it's, you can call it lifestyle, taxes,
Mhm.
you know,
Childcare.
sex appeal. You know, there may be more sex appeal.
We're not Colorado.
No,
Yeah,
you're not Florida or Texas, people who don't, you know, want any government intervention / income taxes.
yeah.
So,
They-
yeah, I mean, I think.
They make it up on real estate and sales tax. They gotta have the revenue. from
Well,
somewhere.
Yeah, it comes from somewhere.
That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think Richmond metro area is like the only place in the state that does not have net migration out. I think a lot of those numbers are,
It comes from Nova. I think.
Yeah, and the pandemic, you know, you just had an influx of people
Yeah.
moving down to.
Well,
places.
Richmond got a little cachet years ago. Now, a decade ago, when their downtown started to redevelop and people started moving in there, and that just seemed like the cool
The
thing.
breweries and chocolate bar.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So it created a little of that attracted people. And, you know, then the challenge become, well, and, you know, all the Scott's Addition gets
Yeah.
hot, and then Manchester gets hot, and
Well, it was still so cheap too, is all that was
Yeah.
happening.
Not so much anymore.
Not at all, no.
I'm
No.
sorry to interrupt y'all, but I've got to run. I've got to get to the
Well-
Thanksgiving party at my son's school if we don't have anything else to vote on.
nah, we're done.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All
We're
right.
just killing time. I need to run.
Happy
to-
holidays.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right,
Likewise.
we shall adjourn.
Thank you.
Everything else.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Y'all have a good,